Greetings, Ventures. This is Lauren, your guild advisor, and after over a year, we're finally back in this environment. It took me a while to set up how I'm recording this, but we are here because Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon Volume 17 has finally released. I read the book. It's been a doozy having to manage making this review, like reading the book, and also working on the Cuts and Changes series for Season 4. But we're here, I finished reading it, I enjoyed it, though it's another setup novel. It's really funny, like Volume 16 was kind of a setup novel, 17 is another kind of setup novel, but of course a lot of stuff does happen in it, but at the same time it's all leading towards what will eventually happen in Volume 18, but I'm getting ahead of myself there. I don't really feel the need to do a overall general review for this novel, because if you are 17 volumes deep into the series, I assume you're just going to read 17, and you just want to know my thoughts on it, want to see what other people are speculating and all that. But I'll just quickly go over my general thoughts, I guess, but we'll quickly just dive right into the spoiler talk. So if you haven't read the novel yet, basically, I really enjoyed the novel, and also just to get some formal stuff out of the way, Volume 17 is written by Fujino Omori, as always, with illustrations provided by Suzuhito Yasuda, and the translator, as it has been for the past few volumes, is DeLucia, and of course it's published by Yen Press. But as for the general thoughts on the novel, again, it's a setup novel, so I don't really have like final thoughts on the volume as a whole, because it's really just like one part of this long Freya arc, so I'm not really going to know how I feel about the entire thing until we're done with it in Volume 18. But I did enjoy the setup. I liked the unique situation that Belle was put in. Like maybe it lasted too long. Like this is actually one of the longer novels, not as long as Volume 14. But in some ways it feels like kinda nothing happened, but a lot of developments were happening in the novel. So the main bulk of the story is Belle being put in this very unique position and him having these developments with Freya and other characters. And also, the unique situation also got to highlight Hestia. I enjoyed her character a lot. It seems that her character is maturing and growing a lot ever since the beginning of the series. So that's really nice to see, because at first, kind of like Lafia, like Hestia was always, to me, like an okay character. Sometimes she got annoying, but over the course of the series, she along with Belle have matured a lot, so really cool to see her have some strong moments in here. Of course, the moments with Freya are very interesting because we get to dive deep into her character and her mindset. As always, it was cool to see the other Freya family members get a bit of screen time as well, see how they act with Belle. That was very interesting to me. Hegni is a weird surprise to me. Like, he's always goofy, but I enjoyed his scenes in this novel as well. But for the most part, I'm just excited to see how Volume 18 goes based off the setup we got with Volume 17. So yeah, I enjoyed Volume 17. I definitely like the Expedition arc a bit more, but of course, that's because of Volume 14, which was the ending to the arc. So who knows, maybe once we get Volume 18, it will have so many strong moments that it might surpass the Expedition arc for me. But we'll just have to see with Volume 18. I'll talk about my speculation on that when we get into the end of the spoiler talk. But yeah, those are my general thoughts on the novel. And I just want to dive straight into the spoiler talk, so let's go. And guys, the best parts about this spoiler talk is that we can talk about the novel and speculate without any spoilers being ahead of us, because we are caught up with the Japanese releases. That no one can like come into the comments and be like, try to do like fake spoilers, like, oh, I wonder if this is going to happen, when they know exactly what's going to happen. I no longer need to be afraid on like going on the wiki or anything like that, or seeing the wrong thing in the subreddit. We are now in spoiler-free territory when it comes to Japanese releases being ahead, because for right now, they're not ahead. We're neck and neck. But that, of course, will change when Volume 18 comes out in Japan in the winter, and hopefully it doesn't take too long to actually get that in English, at least officially. As always, I'm not going to be able to cover every single thing that happened in the novel. I'm going to be talking about the points that stuck out to me, the things I want to talk about. And if there's something I missed or something you want to discuss, please go ahead and leave a comment about it. and we'll go from there. Now, one thing that stuck out to me in the very beginning of the novel when Freya is discussing how she's role-playing as Seer is I saw the name Odin pop up, like, oh, another god mentioned here. But that was just a cool little Easter egg. I don't know if Omori Sensei is going to do anything more with Odin besides that random little nice mention. Omori Sensei also brought up the 3 virgin goddesses again by naming Artemis and Athena. I don't know if he plans on bringing those characters later into the series. Like, Artemis is always interesting because he's been mentioning Artemis quite a bit in the latest light novels. And we all know that the Arrow of the Orion movie is not actually canon. So if he were to bring a version of Artemis in as canon, it wouldn't be the same one as the movie, which is what most people are familiar with. So it would be a very awkward situation. I'm wondering how he would handle that if Artemis actually appeared in the canon. Because again, it would have to be a different version of her. And as you guys know, Ryu is my favorite character in the series. And it like pains me every time Omori Sensei like teases her with Belle in terms of like romance, because it's like plainly obvious that the series as a whole is like pushing and going for an Ai's ending in terms of romance, or it just seems that way. I mean, Omori Sensei said in like the afterword of volume 7 of Sword Art Autoria that he was planning on having Ai's and Belle kiss. So, I mean, there's that, but the editor said, no, let's not do that. But yeah, that's probably the canon couple. But so every time Omori Sensei like teases stuff, like at the very beginning of the novel, when Ryu like finds Belle to talk to him about like where's Seer and all of this, it mentions that Belle and Ryu's face were like so close if they move forward, their lips would touch. They kind of look like lovers, and that I'm like, Omori, why are you doing this to me? Do you enjoy torturing me? And man, just the way that Freya put Hestia in checkmate by having the Freya Familia members attack Hestia Familia in the way they did, like it was so graphic and savage. Like, I was getting, like, scared. Like, I know that I shouldn't be scared. Like, these are the main characters. They're not gonna die here. It even says that Freya doesn't want to compromise the City of Heroes, so they were probably always safe. But it always throws you for a loop when Omori Sensei describes, like, how injured these characters can get. And you just have to remember, they don't exist in the real world. This is the DanMachi universe where levels and statuses exist. So injuries that seem freaking crazy to us, like, aren't necessarily crazy in that universe. But it's always a shock. Like, Aisha was pissed when Haruhime got hurt there. Like, if we get a season 5 for the anime, like, I'm curious to see what the heck this would look like. And speaking of Hestia Familia getting attacked, I did think it was a cool moment when Alfric complimented Lily because she is a prum. And it's especially interesting reading that, like, right after the Knights of Fianna event ended in danmemo, because, like, it's, like, hinted incredibly, especially with the same voice actress, that Lily is possibly, like, the reincarnation of Fianna, so it's interesting to see that kind of parallel. And also regarding Hestia Familia in this volume, like, I know it's because the situation, the story, and how it worked made it so Hestia Familia was pretty much unavailable for the majority of this novel. But it really does feel like Hestia Familia is getting sidelined recently. Because with volume 16, like, while all the date stuff with Seer was going on, Hestia Familia, for the most part, was just working at the pub. And then here in volume 17, they're all trapped in that sandbox. So obviously, they'll have a larger part to play in volume 18 with the war game against Freya Familia. But again, I wonder how much of a difference that they can actually make, given how powerful Freya Familia is. Like, none of them can stand up to the top brass of Freya Familia. And this is really more of a discussion for later on in this video. But that's just something to keep in mind. Like, what exactly could they do besides, like, maybe Haruhime's level boost in wealth, just making a crap ton of magic swords? And then that moment when Ataro encounters Belle and Ryu, because Ataro's about to take Belle. Like, I commend Ryu for her absolute loyalty in trying to help out Belle, and also as part of her love for him, trying to help out Belle, like, Belle, get away from here, like, trying to defend him against Otaro, the level 7, the strongest in Terraria. Like, Ryu, you are insane, but this is why I love you. Like, dang, man. But I really like Otaro because he just seems to be, like, the most sane person in Freya Familia, and the most sane person in the Familia also happens to be the captain, which is probably a good thing. He is like an adventurer from that transitional era, like, between generations of Freya Familia members. Like, he knew the old generation, and he's now the captain of the newer one. And he also knows, like, of the past days, like, he's fought alongside members of Hera and Zeus Familia. Like, I really, like, this novel was such a good opportunity to have, like, an actual conversation between Otaro and Belle. And, like, I hope we get something like that in the future. I just want to see those two characters talk. Because I'm sure Belle would love to know about Zeus and Hera Familia. Zeus in particular for certain reasons. Maybe Hera Familia again for certain reasons, because we know that Belle's mother came from that Familia. And of course we have Freya twisting the whole of Arario by charming it. I don't really think it was something that came out of nowhere, because we've seen the power of her charm in episode Freya. So this was set up ahead of time. And it is kind of terrifying that Freya can just do this. Like, it's not Arcanum that's doing this. It's just part of her dominion. A power that's just a part of her, like how Hephaestus can be an amazing blacksmith without using Arcanum, Soma with his wine. And then we have that form of checks and balances when it comes to Hestia being able to counteract that charm. So I'm glad it wasn't all powerful, because we had a way to counteract that. And of course, it just makes a very interesting situation by placing Belle in that sandbox. Like, a very unique situation for both Belle and Hestia, and it kind of shows how they develop from that. And I don't want to linger on this for too long, but I do want to get it out there. Like, there were some, like, typos and grammar problems in this novel, like, here and there. They were very few and in between. But the one thing that bothered me the most was when you had that list of characters that Belle was, like, pointing out that he knew. Like, they changed some names there, and I'm not sure if it was unintentional or not, because they changed Luvis to Ruvis with a R spelling instead of an L, when that was already established as an L spelling in past volumes. And then they changed Wine's name from W-I-E-N-E to W-I-N-N-E. And I was just like, why? Did someone not edit this? Is this an intentional change? Like, what's going on here? It's been Wine the same way for, like, the past 7 volumes. Like, why did we suddenly change the spelling here? Can you, like, change the spelling for Ryu to an R then? I don't know what's going on there. They pretty much had to hard commit to the L spelling of Ryu, because they already released Familia Chronicle episode Ryu with the L spelling. But I think that decision is starting to bite them in the butt, because later in this volume we see Belle, like, ask about Ryu. And then the Freya Familia members are, like, playing dumb and like, Ryu, do you mean a dragon? And we all know, or a lot of us, like, at least familiar with Japanese because of anime and such, we know that Ryu is, like, another word for dragon. And normally how Ryu is romanized when it comes to, like, talking about dragons is with the R spelling. So I kind of laughed at that and, like, well, could have avoided this if we just changed the R spelling earlier on. Belle's time as a pseudo member of Freya Familia was very interesting. Just seeing the dynamics between the other characters of Freya Familia, getting to know a bit more about Van or Vaughn, however you want to pronounce that we saw in volume 16, how Belle was getting, or at least with him a lot, and the other Freya Familia members when he had to go into town, and then also building kind of a relationship with Heath, the healer. Very interesting to see, like, at the very end of the novel, we got some little, like, short snippets of Heath, like, admitting that she kind of liked Belle. Like, man, this dude, this dude's a woman magnet. Like, Zeus would be proud, but sometimes it gets annoying when Belle attracts so many women. The fact that so many girl characters are taking a liking to Belle romantically, it's somewhat getting old at this point. Because when I learn like a new girl is starting to like him like that, I just kind of get tired. Like, man, we already have so many people. Do we need more? And I'll talk about that when it comes to Horde later as well. And we have that conversation between Freya and Aranos. And like, we're slowly like getting a bit back into the focus of DanMachi when it comes to some of the endgame. Like, of course, the Freya stuff had to be resolved at some point because it's been building up since Volume 1. And then we have Freya going, yo, Aranos, if you let this slide, I'll be a bit more serious about exploring the dungeon and also start to make preparations for the Black Dragon. Like, okay, alright, Omori-sensei, I'm glad that you at least recognize that there are a lot of things that we need to address in the series before it ends. So I'm wondering what he's exactly going to tackle after the war game. Again, that's a discussion for later on in this video. Also, I do want to say, I felt really bad for Anya in this volume. She had it rough in volume 16 and now again here in 17. Like, she goes and confronts Freya with Alan. We learn a bit more about how Anya was always just trying to catch up to Alan in this, and it just felt like Freya took her brother away. And then she kind of gets tossed out by Freya. Like, Freya even says, "You are unnecessary." And then it feels like the very next day after Anya got tossed out, Freya comes to Anya as Seer and then offers her salvation. And, yo, that's just... like, even though Freya did, like, a lot of bad things in this volume, like, just the thought of that, like, being tossed out by Freya and then getting saved by someone else, and then later finding out that that person that saved you was the same person that threw you out, like, that's just terrible. That's awful. Like, I feel so bad for Anya. Like, dang. Like, I wonder what's gonna happen with her in the next volume. Like, it's Freya Familia versus everybody, but I don't think Mia or Anya will be in that fight. And it'd be weird if they, or at least Anya, was in the fight against Freya Familia as a Freya Familia member. That's probably not going to happen, but I'm really curious on what's going to happen with her character. And then we have that encounter I've been wondering about since Volume 16 revealed that Freya was indeed Seer, with the scene between Freya and Ryu. And man, I felt bad for Ryu, of course. And that was a very interesting offer that Freya had here. It's like, yo, if you join my side, I'll let you have a piece of Belle too. Like, yo, this is weird. But I know that there's no way in a million years that Ryu would take that offer. And Freya knew as well, but she still offered it. And I think that Freya was probably serious there. And I wonder what Alan's feelings on the matter are, like, sitting right there. Alan did make me nervous when he said I should have killed Ryu, like, back towards the end of the novel. Like, oh god, oh god, oh god. Like, the entire time, my mind was on, like, maximum alert. And then it was, like, Hegni about to deal, like, the killing blow to Ryu, and then Eyes saves her in time. Like, okay, good. Like, as long as Alan isn't here, Ryu is safe. But that relationship between Freya and Ryu is very interesting. Though Freya probably initially thought that she would have gotten all of Arario when she charmed the entire city. She probably thought that Ryu would be in that. But it was very interesting that when Freya discovered that Ryu was not in that, she said that she did not want to charm Ryu out of respect for her. And you could obviously see how much Freya is fond of Ryu because she was willing to share Belle. It's very like, I'm wondering what's gonna happen again in volume 18. Like, we assume that Freya will lose because if she doesn't lose, that's pretty much the end to the story. Like, I'm wondering how that's going to go down, how Ryu is gonna feel about everything. I guess just how everyone that was fond of Seer, a friend to her, I wonder how that's gonna go down. And once again, addressing Anya when it comes to Alan, like, it's so hard to get a read on this guy, because, like, every time that we see Alan's character, he always expresses annoyance towards Anya, but for some reason he can't, like, stop looking after her in his own way, because like he threatens the tavern, but in a way it just seems like Alan doesn't want Anya to get involved. You see Hedon like call Alan out, like, you're just using Mia as an excuse to like watch over your sister. It's like, Alan, I need to I need to see what you really think, man, because it's like you're kind of like Bet, except like 100 times worse somehow when it comes to expressing your feelings. It's hard to get a read on you, Alan. I hope we learn more about you next novel. Oh yeah, and then Loki Familia. The thing that stood out to me, of course, was the little plot point of like Riveria and Lafia being parts of an expedition in the dungeon, while characters like Eyes, Tiona, and Tione were still on the surface. So I'm wondering what the reason for that split was. And I'm assuming that's like a little tiny tease of stuff that we will learn in Sword Oratoria Volume 13. Whenever that comes out, because Sword Oratoria's light novel series has been like on a kind of hiatus since Volume 12 came out. I believe it's been mentioned that Omori Sensei is working in Volume 13. We've known that the Sword Oratoria series as a whole hasn't stopped, because in the afterword of Volume 12, he said he was thinking about the next arc, because basically Volumes 1 through 12 was like all one big arc if you think about it really hard, because there's been stuff set up since Volume 1 of Sword Oratoria that leads into the finale in Volume 12. So I'm wondering if like this setup is going to be as long, or I'm wondering how Sword Oratoria content will be tackled from now on. But I think we got like a little tease of what the characters could be doing when it came to their mentions here with Volume 17 of the main series. And then speaking of Eyes, of course, we have that scene when Bell like finally has that resolve after talking to Mia to go ahead and confront like his fear ever since being trapped in that sandbox. He's directly tackling that fear of being rejected by Eyes. And fortunately, things turn out good for him. Like, remember, Belle, Eyes is also a main character in this series, and she's a very special girl. So, of course, there were going to be some signs that Eyes knew Belle in some way, and that just reaffirmed Belle in the belief in who he was. Belle of Hestia Familia. We get to see him, like, harden his resolve, that fights against Hedon, where, like, obviously he's not going to win, but he surprises everybody when he manages to like land like a single scratch on the cheek, because remember, Belle is still just level 4, though a top tier level 4 character. As we can see from his stats at the end of the novel, like everything's like S, double S. When it comes to Belle's status, it's very interesting because you wonder if he's able to be level 5 now. Has he done a heroic deed that stands out enough to become level 5? Like, you'd think that the fights against the Masyut and the Juggernaut would do that, but it seems not. Maybe? Yeah, the war game would definitely do it, but I'm curious, because is a level 4 Belle... Like, I assume that the final encounter is going to be, like, Belle and Otarl, because Otarl is the strongest of Freya Familia. Like, like, with the first war game against Apollo Familia, like, it means nothing if the captain isn't the one to take out the captain. So it's going to be Belle versus Otarl, you would think. And Belle, even at like top level 4 status, really more level 5, would be able to fight against a level 7 Otarl, especially an Otarl that has years and years and years of experience and techniques under his belt. Like, is Belle going to be able to become level 5 before this? Level boost also might be a factor. Like, maybe Eyes is involved in the battle. They'll do a tag team effort against Otarl. Who knows? I'm also glad it was mentioned that Belle used both techniques from Eyes and Ryu when it came to fighting against Hedon. Like, this touching my heart remembering Ryu, because we know with Familia Chronicle episode Ryu that Belle has been practicing with Ryu. And of course, there's like the whole event of Volume 14 where Ryu teaches him some stuff about the dungeon during their time in the deep levels. And speaking of the deep levels, I'm glad that like this has become like a sticking point, because Belle keeps talking about the deep levels. Like, he really does have that PTSD from it. Like, you saw a bit of it in Volume 15, and he mentions it a lot here in this novel as well, like how he was comparing the stress at the deep levels with like having to participate in these death battles all the time in Freya Familia. And man, like they were serious about them being death battles. Like this is crazy. But again, it's the DanMachi universe. Like injuries aren't as big of a deal as they are there, as they would be like in real life, because they have magic, they have potions, but it's always like, it always makes you like scratch your head a bit like, dang, dude. And also a quick mention to Hermes being kind of an MVP, because it's ultimately him that helped distribute the firewood that had Hestia's Ichor on it to actually make the Sacred Flame stuff possible to wipe away the charm. And then Osfi also being an MVP with her items, being able to be invisible and not get caught. Especially when Ryu got taken, like Osfi needed a lot of resolve to try and make things work. And thankfully things worked out in the end. And one thing that confused me is that in the novel it says that a certain elf was the one that freed Ryu when she was in that underground cell in Freya Familia. And I was wondering if that was like a mistranslation and it didn't really mean elf, because we assume that it's actually just Horn who's trying to get Belle alone, so she needs Ryu to cause a distraction. Because later on it says Ryu was reminded of a certain girl. Like, why did we just change from certain elf to certain girl? Like, or maybe Horn just use a bit of Freya's power to grow like elf ears, I guess. It was just weird. And when it comes to Horn, I just feel so weird about it. I guess a part of it is just me still being like kind of mad because of that sudden name change from like previously she was Helen in light novels, and then all of a sudden in 16 there's a character called Horn. And I mentioned this in like the comments to my volume 16 review. I didn't know they were the same character, because like Yen Press made no effort to like point that out. That's a pretty drastic change of name from Helen to Horn. They're completely different names, even though they both start with H. Like it's not a case of like Lido like changing to an R spelling, or Liu changing to an R spelling with Ryu. Like these are like completely different names, different syllable counts. It's like what is happening here? So the whole stuff with Horn just, it already has me like biased, like a negative bias against it because of all of that. But yeah, when Horn was dying, like I didn't. It just feels mean to say, like I didn't feel that bad, because I'm like I don't really know Horn all that well. Like even as Helen, she didn't have like too many scenes in the previous novel, so I didn't really feel too much when she was quote unquote dying. I feel bad for saying that. We did get to see a bit more of her character after the main story of the novel was over. We saw like a little side excerpt with her and how she like developed genuine feelings about Belle. And again, like this is kind of getting old with all these characters liking Belle in that way. Like in a way, I think it would be even more tragic if Horn really was just kind of like brainwashed, like being influenced by Seer and Freya into liking Belle. Like if she didn't actually genuinely like Belle, it was just like an illusion because of the influence of both Freya and Seer's emotions. I think that would have been more interesting, to make her a more tragic character instead of just making Horn genuinely like Belle romantically. I really do think it would be more interesting that way. When it comes to Hestia being the hearth, it was a really cool scene with all the firewood burning, her being on top of Babel, and then doing the whole Adas Vesta thing. And I'm going, oh man, dude. The Adas Vesta, I really need to finish that danmemo event. I've only read like the first parts and like half of the second. Like I really need to go through and read the rest of it. I feel really bad now because man, this Adas Vesta suddenly is being more relevant despite it being a non-canon thing. But of course, since Omori Sensei writes the danmemo events, even if some are non-canon, there are like still some concept and elements that you can take from those and apply to like the main series or to the DanMachi universe as a whole. So I really need to get on that. It's like, man, Ate his Vesta, huh? And when it comes to the whole sandbox thing, I thought it was interesting. Like, I was glad that this happened. That Otaro just kind of walks past Osfi after he bodies Ryu. Like, I almost feel like there's a small part of him that's like hoping, hoping that Freya doesn't get her way. And you can see that with Hiden as well. Like, he was turning up the intensity in the death battles against Bell because his mindset was, if we don't get Bell to like surrender soon, it's going to be bad for Freya. So you can kind of see Hiden and Otaro like kind of almost working against Freya in their own way, and then Horn as well. So it's very interesting, I guess, to see like members of Freya Familia like kind of be against Freya in some way, but not really. Like, everything you could just say was out of love for Freya that they're doing this. Like, it's a very interesting excuse to give. Like, I'm only doing this because I love you, Freya. You don't know what you want. And it's actually clear at the end of this novel that Freya does not know what she wants. Because the whole thing with her love for Belle, like it's kind of a cliche thing, but it's almost like maybe Freya is in love with the Belle who isn't in love with her. Even as weird as that sounds. Again, like, Freya also thought this, like, is there any meaning in having Belle choose Freya if it's not out of like actual love? Seer was the one to fall in love with Belle first. Would it have any meaning if Seer wasn't the one that Belle admitted love to? It's a very, very interesting point of view, and of course we're gonna get a bit more into that when it comes to volume 18. And with the whole Freya and Seer thing, like being the same person, like who was Freya really? Like, she says in the novel that it just started as roleplay and then it became something much more. Like, when you try to act in a certain way for so long, I think it just eventually becomes a part of who you are, and that's what you see with Freya here. Like, Belle is asking to see the true Freya. And you kind of see an inkling of that in Familia Chronicle episode Freya. And I think that's why it's probably important, if you haven't read that novel, to read that novel. Especially, like, we're caught up with the series now. If you have nothing to read and you don't read the other DanMachi light novels, it would be a good opportunity to with Sword Oratoria. And especially Familia Chronicle episode Freya, if you want a better understanding of Freya's character, because in that novel, in episode Freya, like, you can see Freya like acting like a normal girl. You can see that Freya is a bit more complicated than just being a goddess. Let's go back to that scene when Ai saves Ryu from Hegni. Like, it's very interesting, and then I think Ryu is recognized as the Gale Wind, and those two characters are so interesting together, Ai and Ryu, because if you've read Estrella Record, and then of course you know about their fights from volume 11, they have both fought each other 2 times already. And I'm pretty sure Ryu is the only one that recognizes that, so it's an interesting situation for Ryu to be saved by Eyes. I'm really hoping they actually interact and have like a conversation with each other, because Omori Sensei just loves to tease us about these two characters and the romance with Belle. So I'd like to see these two characters actually talk to each other. That'd be really cool. But yeah, it was funny to see Ryu like getting flustered about Belle when it came to Eyes, and now Tione was calling them out. And I'm going, well, Tione, you're kind of one to talk with you and Finn. And you're freaking out all the time about him. And one fight I'm really excited to see, because I assume this is going to happen. Like, I hope it happens, because it was teased here in this novel, is Bet versus Alan. Like, they clearly do not like each other. Their dialogue is hilarious, because they're like just trying to out-curse the other. So, like, an actual fight between those two characters would be hilarious, because it would just be like cursing the entire time while genuinely trying to kill each other. But, you know, Bet, how do you feel about joining Essia Familia's war game? Maybe he'll just be like, oh, this is my chance to have an actual like fight to the death against Alan or something like that. But yeah, let's just talk about the war game and what could happen in volume 18 now, because I've been talking a lot. So we know that Freya Familia basically has challenged everybody. Like, you can have as many allies as you want. Go ahead and try and take me. And I'm going, well, I do wonder how that's going to go down, because obviously it's not going to be literally everybody against Freya Familia. I'm wondering how the selection process is going to go, because you think that even if we just add all the top characters from top adventurers from Loki Familia, at some point they kind of outnumber Freya Familia's top members. So I'm wondering how that's going to like be divided. Maybe some characters are going to be unavailable because of stuff Sword Oratoria related. Who knows how that's going to work? Like, again, Bell being the captain of Hestia Familia will probably have to go against Otaro, the captain of Freya Familia. Wondering if level boost has any factor there. I'm wondering if landing a scratch on Hedon is Bell's heroic feat to get level 5. That would be hilarious. And since Ryu has like lost to Hegni 2 times already, I think that's going to be a sticking point. And hopefully that means like Ryu like probably wants to help Bell and get back at Freya, get some more answers about Seer. You would think this would get Ryu to go ahead and find Estrella to get her status updated, because she is undoubtedly a level 5 adventurer at this point, between like everything that's happened in the past 5 years for her, like tanking the Black Goliath, helping fight and doing the final blow against the Juggernaut. Like that's level 5. She should be level 5 at this point. And again, I'm wondering how level boost factors into all of this. Like I think they still want to keep that hidden for most people, so I think level boost would only be reserved for like members of actual Hestia Familia, and maybe also like their allies from the expedition crew as well, plus Ryu, of course, because she's been level boosted to fight against Eyes in the past. So I'm wondering if we're going to see like a Ryu versus Hegni match, just so we can have like round 3 between those two characters, and Ryu's probably a bit salty about losing twice to that guy. And Ryu's like, yo, I have had my status updated for 5 years. I'm tired of this. Let's find Estrella. Like, she should know where she is because she's been sending letters to her. I thought it would have been a good opportunity to find her in this novel because she was outside Arario, but I guess the focus was to get back in to see what was going on. But yeah, I'm really hoping we finally do this. Like, it's about time. Again, I'm wondering what Hestia Familia is going to do, because I did think they were kind of sidelined for the most part these past 2 novels. I mentioned that Welf could probably make a bunch of magic swords. Like, that's kind of obvious. We know he can make a magic sword that doesn't break now, or at least when he had like the correct material for it. We know Harihime has level boost, but I'm not quite sure what Mikoto is going to do, though the gravity magic is pretty versatile, so that's also a thing. And then Lily, of course, will be a commander. I'm wondering if Finn will join the war game as well. Like, yo, we get to see Finn and Lily like commandeer troops together. That'd be kind of cool. But I'm really hoping the members of Hestia Familia, other than Bell, like get more of a chance to shine in the next volume, because they really haven't been able to do much in these past 2. But I'm just really curious on how the war game is going to work. Like, where is it going to take place? Is there going to be like a long prep time for it so Ryu gets that time to find Estrella and all of that? Like, oh, I can see why Omori Sensei is taking so long to write this novel. Like, not only is it like a very important novel to nail, like in the afterword it's mentioned that we almost got like another volume 13 and 14 situation where 13 and 14 were originally supposed to be one novel, and then it got so long it got split in half. And then for some reason, volume 14 just kept growing in size, and it's like the longest novel in this series, which is really funny. And it seems that we're getting a similar case here between volume 17 and 18, except volume 17 is still quite long, so I'm wondering how long 18 is going to be, because if we know Omori Sensei, like, we did split this down the middle, but for some reason, it's even longer. For some reason, it's doubled in size. And again, just wondering what happens in the aftermath of volume 18. Like, I assume Hestia is not going to send Freya back to heaven. I mean, I guess it would be interesting to see what would happen if she was sent back. Like, what are all those Freya Familia members going to do? Like, where would they go to? What familias and all that? Though I feel like all Hestia is really going to do is just tell Freya to not go after Hestia Familia anymore, or something like that. But we'll see what happens at the end. And then I wonder if Omori Sensei will tease, like, what's the next arc going to be in DanMachi after the war game is over. Like, are we, like we mentioned, more dungeon exploration? Will Bell, like, team up with Loki Familia to see what's down there in the dungeon. Of course, he still has that PTSD from the deep level, so I don't know. Like, it's interesting because I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard some people talk about how Omori Sensei wanted the entire story of DanMachi to take place within 1 year, and I'm like, that's crazy. Like, is there not going to be any like substantial time skips? Because like, how much farther down the dungeon is it? Because if one of the plot points that we need to address for the end of the series is to reach the bottom of the dungeon, fight Asterius, fight the Black Dragon, what the heck is the next arc after Volume 18? We'll just have to see. I'm curious on what your guys' thoughts are concerning how Volume 18 is going to go down, what you think will happen, and what is going to be the focus after Volume 18. And again, with the release of Volume 17, we are finally caught up with the Japanese releases until Volume 18 releases sometime in the winter for Japan. That was what was announced, so unless there's like any delays, it will be winter. And we'll see how long Yen Press takes to translate the volume. I hope it's not another over a year wait, because I'm so happy we're not in that stage where we're worried about spoilers coming from like people that are reading ahead. We will be in that situation again when Volume 18 releases, unless we see like a miracle happen, because let me move a bit. Haruhi Suzumiya, that latest light novel from that series, had a simultaneous release in both English and Japanese. It released at the same time in both languages when it released. And I'm like, that kind of gave me hope that DanMachi could maybe do that, or at least have a faster process, because ever since Volume 14 release, especially like 14 was delayed a lot, and then after it released, we had so many delays, like so many long waits for the main series. But now that we're caught up with every single light novel, like there's almost no excuse for it to take over a year again. Though Astrea Record, the danmemo anniversary event for the 3rd anniversary of the mobile game, that's being turned into 3 light novels, and Omori Sensei wrote them himself. Like, he rewrote the story into a light novel format, and that will start releasing in Japan in the fall. Like, it's almost fall now. I think October is the first month it'll be released, and then there's only 3 volumes, and they will be simultaneous releases. So I believe it's October, November, December, and then all 3 volumes will be out. I'm hoping Yen Press picks those up and translates them, because they're going to need more material to work with while we're waiting for Volume 18 to release. So I hope that's in the cards there. And again, I do think I heard that Volume 13 for Sororatoria was in the works, so we should see that sometime after Volume 18 of the main series. We'll see. Omori Sensei has had a lot of work on his plate recently, because he's also having a more involved role in the anime for Season 4, and I think it's quite obvious if you compare the quality of Season 4 compared to 2 and Season 3. Like, it's obvious that Omori Sensei has more influence this time, so I'm happy about that if you've been watching my Season 4 content. But yeah, those pretty much round up my thoughts on Volume 17 and my speculations for the future of the franchise. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up my thoughts when it comes to Volume 17, and also my speculations for Volume 18 and beyond. I'm curious on what your thoughts are about the novel itself and what you think will happen in the future. Please comment that below. But yeah, it'll be a while before the next DanMachi light novel review, because we are caught up. But as far as future content on the channel, of course, check out my Season 4 content, because that is going on strong right now. And as always, if you liked the video, go ahead and give it a like and sub to the channel for more DanMachi content. Don't forget to follow me on my socials, and as always, this is Lorne, your guild advisor, signing out.